Hello everyone. So we have come together for discussing on the most talked amendment, rumor verification. Today we have Ms. Priyanka Nagda, Company Secretary from MMJC and Associate Director, who shall guide us on the key terminologies or key aspects of this rumor verification and also throw some light on the processes to be followed for this rumor verification. So uh, so first question to Priyanka, before we initiate this today's topic, can you explain that, how what this rumor verification regulation includes, and would you like to highlight that how are the compliance officers reacting towards these compliances and how are they trying to comply with the same?
Yeah. Thank you, Yashika, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. So, as we all know, rumor verification is most sensitive item or a sensitive topic and most discussed in topic in the town. So, let's try to deep down, into this subject and understand what things are required to be taken care of while we're complying with these provisions. So, before we go into that, let us understand what changes have happened in these provisions of rumor verification. What were the provisions earlier, what is the present situation. So until 1st June 2024, when it is effective or it is mandatory for top 100 companies to give disclosure of clarification, confirmation or denial of any rumor, earlier that rumor verification was optional in nature, and it was said that it was the law was that whenever any rumor is there in the market in the mainstream media which is specific or impending, and if it was in connection to any material event, then it was supposed to be either clarified, denied, or confirmed by the company. Now, the timeline was also that it has to be confirmed, denied, or clarified within 24 hours of that dissemination of that information in the public domain. So it was very tricky for the companies to identify when was that rumor in the market, and that 24 hours का जो trigger है, it has to be started from that particular point. So if that rumor is there at 6 p.m. in the evening, so 24 hours will start from that date. So it was a lot of burden for the compliance officers, and it was also misused. So because of this, many transactions would also got cancelled, because if even if there is no material price movement, but if that event is Reg 30 event, disclosure was supposed to be given. Hence, because of these complexities, now there is an amendment. And now what they say is they have linked that rumor with the materiality of the price movement. So now if the rumor is material, which means if there is any material price movement for any rumor which is in the mainstream media, is specific and impending, then that has to be clarified, or that has to be verified with either clarification, denial, or confirmation. And the timeline is also changed. Now it has been 24 hours from the material price movement and not from the information in public domain. So that is the most important thing. And now we have also seen some statistics. So if we see some companies in previous year, there were almost 50 to 60 times in a span of a year that there is a material price movement, and it becomes very important for the company to check if there is any rumor in the market and if there is any price movement. So 50 to 60 times is so huge, and hence it becomes so important for the companies to actually take this subject into consideration and be very or I can say that focus on that subject majorly. We have seen some statistics as well. Now it is already applicable to top 100 companies. So many companies have started having internal systems to identify rumor, identify MPM, which is material price movement. 15 to 16 days have been passed after 1st June, where this rumor is applicable or mandatory clarifications are applicable to top 100 companies. And we have seen statistics, there were 19 cases of rumor verification from June 1st till date. And from that, 9 are from top 100 companies. So in this 15 days, there are 9 companies who have triggered this material price movement, or I can say even if not material price movement, but they have actually clarified that rumor on the stock exchanges. And 5 rumors were confirmed, 9 were denied, 5 were clarified that to be partially correct, and 1 was not even clarified. So this is some data which is available for that top 100 companies. Now, let's see that since now from 1st December, it would be applicable from 101 to 250 companies. Many companies will be occupied in annual reports as of now. But it is very important that internal systems are required to be strengthened from now. Companies can also or would require to have mock drills of how this system would take place, how MPM has to be calculated, how rumor would be verified, or how rumor would be identified at first place. So that becomes very important. and uh, very important to see how this rumor verification process can be a routine for these companies.
Okay, this is a very hefty responsibility, and I think process-driven approach has to be taken to comply this. So could you just walk us through the process a company or a compliance officer or any person who is responsible for this should follow to have an effective rumor verification systems and also comply with the required regulations and guidelines?
Yeah, sure. So we simply apply three major parameters or filters for this whole process. First, to start with, is the monitoring or continuous monitoring of mainstream media for any rumor or unverified information. Now, this mainstream media include this Indian newspapers, international media, where we have or any company has material business operations, digital or online news sources as specified in the ISF guidelines. Now, very importantly, they have also highlighted news channels and they have also highlighted that social media is not covered under mainstream media except if there are social media handles of any identified news sources. So that has to be taken care of. Further, if there is any news which is behind the paywall, okay, then that cannot be said that a part of a mainstream media and then it is not required to be clarified. Similarly, there are news aggregators who collect the information and then they display, even that is not required to be clarified or considered as a mainstream media. And the most important is that this mainstream media list is prescribed as per the RNI circulation threshold and should not be older than the 2 years.
Okay, one query to this step. Since the definition of mainstream media, as you mentioned, is very wide and covers various means of information, like newspapers, digital sources, news channel, foreign jurisdictions also. So, how do you feel that the company can manage checking all those mainstream medias to identify rumors, especially the digital sources?
This is very important. And to identify all these things, to identify all the mainstream medias or to track all the mainstream medias, it is very important that companies should have appropriate technologies and internal systems in place. There would be investor relation teams in the company, there would be corp communication teams. So all these teams have to be made aware about these compliances and they should be made responsible to track those information in the mainstream media. Some teams should also be involved in identification of material price movements and they should support the compliance teams with this relevant information. Some companies as of now who are in top 100, they have also started hiring various reputed external media agencies for assisting them in collating this information. So this may help them to collate or track this information from this huge mainstream media. Yeah. So, okay. So this was the first step. Next, let us also understand what is the next parameter, which is specific versus general. Now, it is also important to identify whether any rumor is specific or is general. And as per the law, if it is specific and impending, only then we have to take it forward for verification. Otherwise, if it is general, then the company is not required to clarify or verify that information. So now what is specific, what is impending? So any information which is specific on the company and such event is imminent, that is about to happen, which is immediate and is going to happen, not already happened. So all these identified criteria have to be, highlighted and it should be on the attributable sources. So even that is one of the parameters to identify whether it is specific or general. So giving some illustrations, for example, now there is one information, there is one rumor which says company X is proposing to launch a product ABC in next 12 months. Okay. Versus there is one another news which says company X is evaluating potential strategic technical collaborations. Now, what is the difference between these two? First is company X is proposing to launch product ABC in next 12 months. So all this information is very specific, where the name of company is there, what information is what is the transaction that company is going to do it in the immediate or I can say the information which is impending. So even this is considered as specific. But if second illustration which I gave, company X is evaluating potential strategic collaborations. There is no information which is specific here that what kind of collaborations, with whom this collaboration is supposed to be made. So that identification is very important and hence it can be bifurcated whether it is specific or it is general. Giving a second example also that if there is one illustration that company is in talks for a potential strategic collaboration with company Y. Okay. And then there is again there is one information: company X is proposing to appoint an industry veteran as its next CEO in its upcoming board meeting. So if you see, both this information has a great clarity that the this event is going to happen rather than the event not going to happen, and they have specific information about the company and the proposed transaction. Hence, this information is specific. If such details are not given, then we can consider it as general. So, this is something which I would like to highlight about specific versus general.
That's very informative, Priyanka. Now will come to the most important concept, which is material price movement, which is new for everyone, and I think exchanges also have to come with certain circulars and certain explanations. So if you can throw some light and help us at how a material price movement has to be calculated.
Yeah, sure. So I'll try to explain this concept by an illustration. So as they have already specified in the law, that if there is a price range of equity shares between 0 to 99.99 rupees, so any positive or negative change of 5% or more would be considered as MPM, which is material price movement. Similarly, for the companies whose share price is between 100 rupees to 199.99 rupees, any such impact or change of 4% or more is MPM. And if there is a price range of 200 and above, then any change which is 3% or more in the security price of the company, then it is considered as an NPM. So these are the three parameters which has been prescribed by ISF guidelines. And the next thing is also important, that is there is a benchmark index also. So if there is a change in the benchmark index greater than 1%, then even that has to be added in the price of the securities to calculate the MPM. So this is the concept. Now let us start with an illustration. Okay, so this is, you can see this is X. X is the percentage change of the closing price of previous day versus opening price of the current day, which is at 9:30 a.m. So that percentage is our X. Now Y is our Sensex Nifty 50 percentage change from the closing price of previous day versus opening of current day. Okay, at 9:30 a.m. again, because opening is 9:30. Z is our highest price comparison as compared to last closing price. That percentage change is our Z. Okay. Now let us understand. Giving an illustration of the price of the securities of 200 and above. So 3% is our parameter. That if there is any MPM of 3%, if there is change of 3% or more, it is a material price movement. So now if my Y is less than 1%, Y is my Sensex Nifty 50. So as above I have mentioned that if benchmark index is more than 1%, then even that has to be added to our price. Now here it is less than 1%. So no need to check our Y. So Y is less than 1%. So we will have to check X. X is my company's closing price of previous day versus opening of the next day. If that is more than 3%, that change is more than 3%, it is a material price movement. So if there is any rumor in the market, then we have to take it forward if there is specific impending information on mainstream media. So then it has to be clarified. But if that price, which is X, is less than 3%, which means there is no material price movement. So even if the information is there on mainstream media, it is specific and impending, but it has no material price movement, then that rumor is not required to be clarified by the companies. Now, taking another illustration, Y, which is our Sensex Nifty 50 percentage change, if that is more than 1%, okay? Now, this also is required to be calculated then. So, taking an example that Y change is 2%, okay? So, 3% is our threshold for the price of securities 200 and above, and 2% is the Sensex price change, Sensex or Nifty price change. So, we will have to see whether there is a change in the price of the securities of company by 5%. If X, which is our price of the security, is greater than 5%, then it is a material price movement, because that 2% of Nifty 50 Nifty and Sensex percentage is required to be checked. However, if that price of X is less than 5%, then it is no material price movement. So the benefit of the Sensex and Nifty change is also available with the companies. Last, irrespective of any Sensex price movement, we also have to check our intraday prices, which is our Z. Now, throughout the day, if there is any increase of 3% or more, in the security price of the company, then there is a material price movement. And the same way, we have to check if there is any rumor, specific impending, and on mainstream media, verification of that rumor is required. However, if that is less than 3%, it is no material price movement and then no disclosure required. But company is regularly required to check whether that Z is any during the entire day, if that Z is crossing that percentage threshold of 3%. So that becomes very important. This calculation will definitely help the companies to identify if there is any material price movement.
Thank you, Priyanka, for simplifying this complex concept with the help of illustration. This was really helpful. So one question here. So supposedly, if there's any specific impending event, sorry, rumor in the market, in the mainstream media about any company, and there's also material price movement, then can directly company go and verify, clarify, or deny the rumor, or there any other step or process which the company should follow before at least clarifying the same?
So one important thing here. So upon once the rumor is filtered of identifying if it is eligible for disclosure to the stock exchange. First information is that we have to identify the stakeholders. Who are our stakeholders? Who are related to this information, or what is the source of this information? And then the concerned team and stakeholders should actually understand the authenticity of this news. Okay, if there are any stakeholders involved, then definitely company should first engage with them, understand the impact of that intimation, discuss with them, and then act accordingly. And most second important part is that if event is related to any promoter, director, KMP or SMP of the company, then company should first raise that queries or take explanation about that rumor from these stakeholders or these individuals, then identify what response is required to be given. If the event is false as confirmed by these persons who are involved in the rumor, then the rumor can be denied. However, if there is a confirmation that yes, there are such news or discussions going on, and if that information is at preparatory or advanced stage, we'll try to understand what is that preparatory and advanced stage as well. Then the company is required to finalize the disclosure and then submit it to the stock exchange. So preparatory means very basic stage where the company is exploring if they will be going ahead with this information. An advanced stage would depend upon what the level that discussions have reached and what is company going to do with that information. So identifying the stage, company is required to discuss with that stakeholders and then accordingly prepare the disclosure and give it to the stock exchange.
Okay, this gave a very good clarity. So you mean to say we need to have this all floor processes done in 24 hours from the material price movement.
Yes.
So I understand that why ISF standards have put a statement that the company should have internal systems and should take help of technology to comply with this, because doing this four hefty process in 24 hours is some hefty and a big thing to do. But thank you for this clarity, Priyanka. I have very few situations or few queries to be discussed. So can we start with the same?
Yes, yes.
So first situation or first query I have is, if there's any rumor pertaining to a subsidiary or a group company, whether that would be required to be clarified by the listed entity?
So yes, if it is going to have an impact on the company, either qualitative or a quantitative impact, then definitely we will have to give a disclosure about that rumor.
Okay. Second question is, are events or information, uh, so should the company, so sorry, so should the company reply every time, or once the rumor is out, and if they have clarified or verified or denied that rumor, and supposedly there's a repeated rumor or repeated news about that event, so whether the company should go and again verify the same?
So there are two aspects to this. One is if the rumor is already responded, either through a denial or confirmation, and there is a similar rumor in the market, then there is no requirement of again having that clarification given to the stock exchange. But the second aspect is if that rumor was already there, the company is already clarified, confirmed, or denied, and now there is a new key element to that rumor, then that is something which was not there earlier. So further response would definitely be required here.
Okay. So what if the rumor is not specific and impending? Uh, then also the company needs to go and does the verification of rumor part?
So there are three main aspects as we discussed, or three main parameters. First is mainstream media, second is specific impending, and third is main material price movement. Company should see whether all these three things are triggered. If the rumor is not specific and impending, but it is on mainstream media and has a material price movement, still company is not required to disclose that information or clarify that information.
Okay. As we are discussing about impending, one question that you mentioned impending means that is about to happen.
Yes.
So what would happen to those rumors or for those events which have already happened and they are not about to happen?
Correct. So if the rumor has already happened, which means it is not at all impending, and as we discussed now, all these criteria, all these parameters are required to be complied with, and hence, if there is the rumor which is already taken place. So, for example, if there was any such kind of a rumor in the market which has already taken place, for example, if I give you, or if it is not going to happen. Example is, let's take an example of any of the life insurance businesses. If there is any press release or where the questions will be asked to the any KMP of the company, or and they ask that KMP whether they would like to start a health insurance business or they would like to seek like health insurance business license as well. As per IRDA regulations, life insurance companies cannot get license of health insurance. So even if the KMP is confirming that they would definitely try to or definitely go for that health insurance, and if that is the news in the market, it does not mean that it is impending because law will never allow them to do so. So in that situations also, is it impending? Answer is no. Similarly, if there is information for which the company has already started that particular event, so whether it is impending, again the answer is no, and hence no disclosures would be required for such cases.
Okay. So one thing on the mainstream media. So in the ISS standards, they have given the list of the news sources, which is of 2022, and they have also mentioned one of the parameters that the data should not be older than 2 years. So can this data be referred for identifying the list of mainstream media in current financial year?
So it's a very good question. So as of now, for this current financial year, we can use this data, but from next financial year onwards, that 2022 list will not be, should not be referred to, and hence this question would has to be arised from next year. So we will have to wait for the list to be updated by the Directorate of Audiovisual Publicity and Audio Bureau of Circulation by next year. Or if not, then we should wait for clarity from stock exchanges about that list.
Okay. One more question that supposedly if there's a rumor, where in the market maybe a day ago or 2 days ago, and the MPM is after 2 days. So whether the clarification is still required?
Say so, if you ask me, it is always suggested that whenever there is a price movement, company should actually scrutiny the news of that day and also till up to the 24 or 48 hours before that material price movement, because market would actually take 24 to 48 hours to disseminate that information. So if you ask me, yes, we should see 2 days before news as well and then react to that information.
Okay. So one more concept of paywall. So what if the news is behind the paywall and there's still a material price moment in the market, and the that rumor is not in the mainstream media yet, but in the evening it's in the mainstream media. So whether this event should be verified, and when will the 24-hour trigger start from?
Hmm. So this is very tricky question. Compliance officers have to be very careful in such situations. According so and such similar internal discussions and calls are required to be taken. According to us, rumor has to be verified in this situation as well. But if someone takes a call that we will not verify such kind of rumor because market MPM has already triggered even before the rumor was in the market, then there has to be an internal document in place to to support such answer and then to maintain the consistency.
Okay. I think one question on confidentiality. So, how to determine how much and what details are required to be given to the market in case of rumor verification without breaching the confidentiality terms with the third party when there's a transaction involving two to three parties?
Correct. So hence ISF guidelines have bifurcated the clarifications into two stages. First is preparatory stage. So if it is preparatory stage, then company can always respond that company is exploring such kind of transactions and would come to the media or would disclose once that information is concrete, right? And then Reg 30 compliances can be done. However, if it is at advanced stage, then company should disclose with that third parties or discuss with that third parties, identify what disclosure would be mandated or would be required, and third party will also be comfortable with, and then accordingly give responses to that rumor.
Okay, so stakeholder engagement again is very important here. So two more questions, Priyanka. One question is that if stock exchange seeks clarification for rumor in mainstream media, but there's no material price movement. So whether still the companies would be responsible to go and clarify or verify this exchange's notice?
Yes, so earlier also whenever stock exchanges used to ask the companies, they were supposed to clarify. अभी तो वो 100 companies के लिए तो ऐसे भी compulsory हो गया है, but that is so moto that they have to check it. However, if stock exchanges ask for any data, even if there is no material price movement, but stock exchanges feel that such clarification is required, then companies will have no choice. They will actually have to, clarify that news to the stock exchanges. And we have seen that stock exchanges have actually raised queries on 16 such cases, and all 16 cases or 16 companies have responded, even if some companies may there was no material price movement. So
Okay, so just last one question. What changes will happen in the existing policies of the company? So if you can just throw some light that which policies are to be amended due to this rumor verification amendment.
yes. First is materiality policy, where we will have to define what is material business operations for the company, and the board of directors are required to approve that English business or financial news sources from those jurisdictions. Second policy which is also required to be amended is code of fair disclosure. But however, it depends what your code is saying. If there is elaboration on how rumor is required to be verified as per the earlier norms, then definitely that code has to be reviewed and revised by the company.
No more questions, Priyanka. Thank you so much. This was a very insightful discussion, and I hope this will help at least all the 250 companies to comply with the new amendment.
Yep. Thank you so much, Yashika. The last summary that companies should have implemented internal systems to ensure that proper verification of rumor is done by the companies, and they will have mechanisms to verify material price movement so that the timely disclosures are ensured. Thank you, everyone.
Stop considering.